Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Getting to Know Invivo webinar. My name is Mike Joyce, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Osteoid. Also joining me is my colleague, Amanda Sellover, our application specialist, and we will be hosting today's 1-hour planned webinar. As a reminder, we'll have everyone muted during today's session. If you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll save time at the end for Q&A. Now I wanted to take a few minutes to go through who we are and what we do. Here at Osteoid, we are a pioneer 3D imaging software company, mainly specializing in dentistry. Our 3D imaging software, Invivo, was created in 2004 under the company name Anatomage, and the Invivo has become the standard in the 3D dental imaging world for the last 15 plus years. Today, we are going to specifically focus on how we support implant general dentistry. At this point, I'm going to hand it off to Amanda so she can go through today's agenda, as well as an overview of our products, and then she'll start a live demo in the software. Amanda, please take it from here.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for everyone that has joined so far. We are excited to have you here for our first episode of Get to Know Invivo. Today's episode will be focused on implant planning. Episode 2 next Friday will cover more of our orthodontic solutions, so be sure to sign up for that if you have any interest in those solutions as well. So our agenda for today is that we're going to introduce you to some of our products and services. We're going to spend a lot of time on the ones that specifically pertain to implant planning. As we talk about those products and services, we are going to discuss the 2 most common implant workflows that we see with our customers. We're going to work through a case together in Invivo 6 Plus to plan an implant and highlight how these features can streamline your implant planning process. We're going to explore how our software interfaces with Invivo Workspace and show you a little bit of the features within Workspace that can help. And then we are finally going to talk about surgical guide service. We're going to talk about the process, what that looks like, the materials we use for our guides, and the types of guides that we can produce. So on this slide, I've listed out the 3 major products and services that we use for implant planning. To start with, we have Invivo 6 Plus. This is our 3D imaging and treatment planning software. This is where you, as the customer, can pull in your DICOM information, choose the implant that you would like to place for your patient, place it in their anatomy to know ahead of your surgery exactly what that is going to look like. We see this software used in both of the workflows that we see commonly with implant planning, which is that free-handed approach. And we also see our software used in our surgical guided approach when placing implants. Invivo Workspace can also be used with both of those approaches. This is our cloud-based platform that provides our users with file sharing, file viewing, and collaboration capabilities. So if your patient needs a copy of their scan, you can send it directly to them via email. If you need to collaborate with a colleague, you can do so in Workspace. And if you need to send your patient to a completely different specialty, all of that can be done right here in Workspace. And finally, our guide service. So this is the service that we offer for implant planning. You would send your DICOM images to us. We would do that heavy lifting up front in the software to create that treatment plan for you. We meet with you for a live treatment planning session and talk to you about what we've created. You can make any modifications to that before we fabricate your guide and send it to you for you to use during your surgery. So now that we have an overview of all of those products and services, I'm going to jump into our software and we're going to plan our case together. So what you see before you is Invivo 6 Plus. This is our 3D software. Within this software, you can see we have a lot of tabs across the top. Section through consultation would be included in the comprehensive software package. So as you can see, Invivo is quite comprehensive. The 4 at the very end, 3D analysis onto Stitch, are add-on modules that are available as well. For today's webinar, we are going to stay in these first 4 tabs, which are Section, Volume Render, Arch, and Implant, as they are the cornerstones of our implant planning. And then we're also going to look in Gallery a little bit as well. So under each tab, you will see you have several different tools or collections of tools. Across the top, we have our toolbar. These will change depending on which tab you're using and the features that you have in each tab. And then you also have the left shoulder panel as well. The tab you're looking at right now is our Section tab. This is our quick viewing tab. So we bring in that raw DICOM image that you collect in your scans. That will be in your top left image. These are your axial images. Our software automatically computes those into the sagittal and coronal NPRs, which you see here. And then it also gives us this 3D rendering in the bottom right. This allows us to quickly triangulate areas of interest so that we can see very quickly our patient's anatomy, any pathology going on in that area, and decide what we would like to do for that patient. We are also able to work out of these 90-degree planes by creating a custom section. This custom section allows us to create a double oblique through any portion of our patient's anatomy so that we can see that anatomy more in isolation, like so. So looking at this patient, I can already tell we're interested in this lower right side, and we would probably be placing 3 implants in this area. This double oblique also gives us a really good view of that nerve pathway as well. Anytime throughout our workup, we can save images to our gallery for documentation or patient presentation. So to do that, we could go to View and Capture to Gallery. And then it gives us a couple of options on what we want to capture. We can capture this whole screen or individual windows. I'm going to capture this custom section because it's a really good view of the area that we're looking at. So I'm going to click Custom Section and OK. And what that does is saves it into our Gallery tab. As we move on into our Volume Render tab, this is where we can get a bigger image of our 3D rendering. So here we're able to manipulate our 3D as well. Some of the options we have for manipulation are to clip data. What clipping does is it hides information from our view, depending on how we tell it we want to see it. So right now I have this in the axial clip. So it's taken off the top of my scan, and I'm able to isolate the area that I'm interested in without removing that area completely. One of the reasons we may want to do this is if our patient has a lot of scatter. So we can put this in the axial clipping and quickly eliminate that scatter off of our 3D rendering. As we move on into our implant plan, that's no longer going to be in our way. If I take off that clipping, I can also remove the entire spine, as that really has, that's not going to be any help during our implant plan as well. So we can take off this in its entirety when we remove that clipping. So now you can see the only information we have is the information that we want to see for this patient. Invivo has some really great view controls as well. So the one that we're looking at right now is what most of our dental professionals really like to see, that translucent bone and that opaque tooth, so that we can see how it sits in our patient's bone and how those two areas interact. We also have a opaque bone view. So if we look at the area that we're interested in, we can see the bone structure of that space as well. We also have some soft tissue renderings. So soft tissue 1 is really good for looking at air-filled cavities. So for example, we can see our sinuses here. And soft tissue 2 is where we get to see a little bit more of those more dense soft tissue structures like our tongue and our gums. I'm going to take this back to our tooth view. That's the one that I really like using for our implant plans. And continue with our treatment plan. So now we've got a really good idea of our anatomy. We've got a good idea of what we would like to do on this patient. So we're going to start the planning process now. When I click on Arch tab, this is the first step to that planning process. In this tab, we can create mandibular or maxillary arches, depending on the portion of the patient that we want to work on. So for this patient, we know we're looking at the mandible. So we have created an arch spline along our mandibular arch. From that arch spline, it gives us a sliced pano view that we can scroll through in our bottom window. And it also gives us our sagittal images over on the right-hand side. If the arch spline doesn't automatically pop up how you would like to see it, we can easily make a new one by placing nodes along the anatomy that we're interested in. I'm going to create my arch spline so that I can really see that nerve pathway, because the reason why I want to use this tab and have an arch spline is so that I can create a nerve model. So as I move into my implant tab and I'm looking at my 3D model, I'll know exactly where that nerve is while I'm placing my implants. So you can see that was very easy to create. And then we can also edit it afterwards if we'd like. So throwing those nodes into our nerve canal, we get a nice isolated area down here of where that nerve canal is. And I can simply click new nerve and drop nodes in there to create that nerve model. And we can use our scroll function to follow that all the way out. And where it exits the mandible, we can use our sagittals to make sure that that exits properly. When we're done, we can click done. If we've made any errors, we can also modify this nerve if we'd like by clicking on the nerve and making it active and clicking modify. I like the way this one looks, so I'm going to go with it. We do have some quick measurement tools on this page as well, so that I can make sure that the space that I'm interested in for this patient would hold an implant. I can quickly create some measurements here just to make sure that I'm not going to go through this entire planning process and it not be something that would work for our patient. Like so. I'm also going to collect this image, and I'm going to do this on a whole view so that you can see what that looks like when we get to our gallery tab as well. So moving into our implant tab, this is where we get a lot of the features for planning our implants. So as you can see, our implant tab gives us that 3D rendering. And now that we've created that nerve model, we see that nerve model in place as well. To add our implants, we can do this one of two ways, depending on your preference. We could do that in the 3D planning layout, or we can also do that in the pano layout. I'm going to start on the pano layout, and then I'm going to do it again on the 3D, just to show you both ways. So when I click on pano, it'll bring up the traditional compressed pano image that we're all used to. And then it'll lay out the implants above and below our patient's pano so that we can easily click and drag and drop these into place. You can place as many as you would like in this tab, including maxillary and mandibular simultaneously if needed. Once they're placed, we get move widgets where we can rotate these. We can also increase and decrease the size of the implant that we've placed, including length and diameter. And another tool that we have that's really helpful is that we can make these parallel. So since these are right beside each other, that might be something that we would like to do for this patient. I'm going to angle these so that you can see what this does. So if we have these angled like so, I could drag and drop my nodes together and create a parallel between these implants, and it doesn't automatically register. What we would have to do is click on the implant that we would like the others to assume that angulation. So I'm going to click on my middle one because I like that angulation, and you'll see the other ones quickly follow that angulation as well. The implant that we have selected can also be manipulated on our 2D images over on the left-hand side. So I'm going to delete these, and we're going to go back and do the same thing on our 3D rendering. You can see the difference and find your preference. If we wanted to break any of these parallels, all we would have to do is click on the node we no longer want paralleled, and it would ask us if we want to break, and I'm going to say yes. I do want to point out one difference between Pano and 3D. We get this question quite a bit. So on our Pano image, we can make 1 or 2 parallel, but we don't have to make all of them parallel. So for example, right now I have 29 and 31 parallel. In the 3D layout, however, we would have to make all or none parallel. But if we choose which ones we wanted parallel in our Pano view, that would cross over to our 3D view. So if I click on 3D implant, add implant, now you can see that that selection I made to make 29 and 31, but not 30 parallel, has crossed over into this dialog as well. The difference, again, is in this dialog box, the only way to make them parallel would be to select all parallel or to select none parallel. I'm going to do all parallel, and I'm going to choose to drop all 3 of these right from the start. And click OK. And you'll see when we do that, our implants are now connected to our mouse. So wherever we place or click on our 3D rendering, this implant is going to be placed there. If you don't have your patient lined up the way you would like to see them to place this appropriately, you can change your rotational angles at the top without having to click and drag your image. So I think the best way for me to view this patient to place these is to have them in a right oblique. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to place this in the desired location. Once I place one, you'll see the other one pops up, and I can place that one and the next one. As I rotate these, you'll see that they're all parallel, so they're moving in sync. One really great feature, going back to our clipping, is that we can put this in an axial clipping so that we can view this from the lateral side, and we can also turn this and view it from the medial side. So we can see both ways. I'm going to remove that. You'll also see that the move widget on our 3D is a little different from our Pano because we are working in that 3D environment. We are allowed to move this anterior posterior. We can go superior inferior, excuse me. And we can also go right to left, like so. Rotationally, if we're looking at the patient in an AP, we can move this or angle this front to back. And if we're looking at it in the AP, we can angle this right to left. So we have a lot more move options in our 3D rendering, which is why it's my preference. A couple of other options we have for moving, just like on our Pano, is that we can select our implant and we can move these on our 2Ds as well. With our 3D rendering, we do get an extra view at the bottom for more precise placement. When we have our implants placed, we can change our implant to our desired implant. So right now I have dropped a generic implant in place. I can choose an implant and pick a particular manufacturer or product that I prefer to work with. So Invivo's implant library is quite expansive. We have quite a few implant manufacturers and products available to you. So for example, I'll just choose a Straumann and I'll choose one of their standard products. Once I've done that, I will also see all of the diameters and lengths available in that product. And I can do this for each implant that I have placed. And they can be different manufacturers. If you want to use one manufacturer for this implant, you may do so, and a different one for this one, for example. We get a lot of questions on how to manage our implant library. So this is a lot. We might not want to see this all day while we're working in Invivo. To manage this properly, we would go to our settings and we can update our library. So as you can see, I have a few updates to do myself. We would just click the button beside update and click update. We can also view any release notes about this update. It'll tell us what has changed. We like to update these at least every quarter, if not more. And I think this quarter is an example of a quarter that we've released more than one update. We can also set up a preferred implant list. Right now, I have all of my manufacturers and products available in my dropdown. But if your practice only uses one or two, we could only have those particular manufacturers and products over in this list and everything else over here. So then when you do this dropdown, only those two would show up. You can also set defaults. So from that initial add implant dialog box, we can choose to drop a specific manufacturer from there as well. While we're in this settings tab, I do want to show you some of the features that we have for warnings while we're placing our implants. So we like to let our software work for us, not us work for our software. For example, we have this show collision warning. This is a warning that we've created whenever you get close to this nerve model. So if I were within 2 millimeters of that nerve model, it would show a warning. And then this surrounding warning is when our implants get too close to each other. And that's indicated by this yellow box around our implant profile. And I will show you what those look like now. So if I move this guy all the way down to my nerve model, to get close enough, there we go. Now I get a warning. And it's telling me I'm within 0.5 millimeters of touching this nerve, and I might want to change my placement. On the same topic, if we move these two close to each other, now it's telling me I'm really close to this other implant that I've placed, within 1.6 millimeters of it, and I might want to change that placement as well to remove that warning. And as you can see, these are customizable, so this can be any number that you feel comfortable with. Another great feature about implants when it comes to Invivo, when it comes to implant planning, is we like to think of implant planning in a restoratively driven way. So directly from our implant tab, we can add restorations and view these virtually while we're placing our implants. So I would know automatically that this is not a great fit for this patient because it doesn't match the other dentition. So I could then move these around to fit our patient's current teeth more appropriately. So you can see how bringing in those virtual restorations can really help with our design. Once I have these in place, let's say this is perfect. Like so. I'm gonna make this perfect right now. I won't waste time doing that. But let's say it is. We could then lock our treatment plan. So while we're Manipulating our 3D image, we don't accidentally grab one and move it. So I can no longer select these and move them, which is really helpful when you are finished with your treatment plan, but you're still manipulating your data. You don't want to mess up all that hard work you just did. Some of the other options that we have with Invivo is that we can customize how we want to view things at different steps of our process. So for example, under View Presets and Setup, I can show you what that looks like. So I've set mine up so that I can have a volume, implant, stone model, restoration, and wax up presets. You can customize these to say anything that you would like. Within each one of these, we can decide what we would like to see. So for example, volume, I've chosen to see the profile of my implant, the long axis, that surrounding warning box, the nerve model that we created, and the angle between each of these. I can also turn on and off visibility of my stone models, those restorations, and the volume of our patient if needed. On the other hand, in implant, now I've chosen to see the actual STL of the implant that I have created or placed. I've also chosen to see the abutment that's going to connect to that. And I've also chosen to see this trajectory. That is this green cylinder that sits on top of our implant, and that shows us how much space we would need to get in there and perform that insertion. We can also bring in our stone models. For example, if I click on my stone model preset, I can see I have selected to make that visible. This is our intraoral scan. And if we want to bring that in, we can do so in our restoration tab. And then when I click on restoration, I can then see those restorations that I've placed virtually to get an idea of what that would look like with our stone model and our volume in place. Wax up, on the other hand, is what you would see if you use our surgical guide service. So with the wax up, you would get those implant placements from our surgical guide team. You would see all of that other information as well as the virtual models that they've created. I'm going to turn that off and work through some of the tools that we have up here as well. I'm going to unlock this, so I'm going to want to move those in just a moment. The tools that we have at the top are implant angle boxes. So we can see each implant available that we've placed and the angle that they are from each other. So if we didn't have these parallel, we would see the degrees here in this chart. Another great tool that we have is this density profile control. A lot of our doctors like this because it shows us the Hounsfield units or the bone density directly surrounding that implant. So if I click OK here, and we can tell it how close or far away that we would like it to calculate that. So if I click OK here, I can see that the implant that I have placed here is in a good place. This is healthy bone tissue that will hold this implant in place. Instead, if I were to move this over into air, we would now see we're in the mid Hounsfield category. And that's probably not going to support that implant very well. If we were in really dense bone, you would also see it in the white category or the blue category of Hounsfield units. Again, this might be a part of the bone that we might not want to use because it is too dense. So when we have it in the proper place, we should get a green Hounsfield unit where we have healthy bone. I am going to flip over to a different case to show you this next tool. Our next tool that I would like to show you is our bone grafting tool. So with this tool, specifically for maxillary implants, if we don't have enough bony stock to hold that implant in place, we would want to put some bone grafting material or some sinus grafting material in place. And we can measure that space before we get into our surgery to see exactly how much material we would need. So if we click this tool, it gives us a semicircle that we can place around our implant in question. And once we click, it's going to give us an estimated volume of material that we would need to inject into this area to hold that implant in place. This shows up as a blue outline on our 2D images, and it also shows up as a model on our 3D with our measurement. Going back to our other case, since that one is more worked up, I'm going to show you also our treatment planning summaries. So right here, we can, once we're completely done with our workup, save our implant images to our gallery. So I'm going to do that. And then we can also save a reference chart to use. So with the free-handed approach, let's say you worked this up in our software and you're going to go free-handed with your surgery. You can use this reference chart to show you at the chair side exactly what you had planned in Invivo. So it'll show you your manufacturer, the product that you chose, the diameter, and the approximate location that you placed it in the software. So now that that's saved, let's go into our gallery tab. So again, in our gallery tab, this is a collection of any images that we've taken throughout our workup. You can see that initial custom section that we took a picture of. You also see that all on one view of our focal trough we've created for our arch spline, that sliced pano, and then those sagittal images that we took our measurements on. You also see implant summary images. So this is viewing our 2Ds, that Hounsfield unit, as well as on our 3D model where we place those implants. And you would get that for every implant that you've placed. And then you can also see those reference charts. So you can create these for yourself, but it's also something that you would get if you used our surgical guide service. They would send you this implant summary, who your patient was, the manufacturer, the product, and the size of the implants that we planned, and then break those down per implant, like so. So at this point, our plan is complete. We've completed this treatment plan for this patient. What we would want to do is save this as an Invivo file. This would save any of the work that you've done within our software onto a desktop or a server location, PAC system, wherever you want to save these. Instead, I'm going to show you how this interfaces with Workspace. For example, let's say we're not completely confident with the placement of 31. We want to send this to a colleague to get a second opinion. What I would do is go to File and Send File. This is going to ask me how I want to send that. I want to send them my workup, so I'm going to send them this Invivo file type. If I click OK, on my other screen, my Workspace interface is going to pop up. And this is where we can choose any contacts that we have saved in our Workspace or add new contacts. So let's say I want to send this to my colleague. I can choose her name, write a comment here, and then send this directly from within the software via Workspace. I'm going to close out of this. Additionally, we can also open cases through our Workspace and our software. So if we clicked File, Open, I'm going to discard the changes that we made here. And from this File Managers page, we can choose to browse our computer for images that we have collected, or we can choose to browse the Workspace cases that I have. So I'm going to click Browse Workspace so that you can see what that looks like. And these are all the cases that I have saved on Workspace, the date that they were uploaded, and then any comments that I've received about these. I can choose to open these directly through the software from our Workspace accounts. So now that we see the interface, let's go to Workspace and look at that, see what that looks like. So again, this is our cloud platform. It is a powered by your web browser. You can open this anywhere as long as you have internet access. To upload cases, we could drag and drop files in from others like our desktop or our server, PAC system, and upload that here. We can also have cases sent directly to us. They'll populate in our case dashboard. So these are all the cases that I currently have on Workspace. When we select these cases, we will see our case information, so our patient's name, etc., and any discussions that we've had about this case. So I've created a discussion for this one. I sent my colleague a question. Can you please check implant 29? I need a second opinion. And we can type back to her, or she can type to us directly through this, this platform. So live collaboration, very quick file sharing, all directly through Workspace. If we wanted to send the scan, we could click the radio button beside our patient's name and send this to anyone that we have listed in our contacts list, or add a new contact. And we can create a new discussion as well from here. You can build out your contact list as much as you would like to. These are all the people that I have saved in here. You can add contacts by using this button here. And you can enter your new contact information here and add them to your list. And when we click on preview, that would open our case in our web browser. So let's see what that looks like. So if I click preview, this is how it would look in the web browser. So you don't get all of those tabs, but the great thing about this is it's most of the tabs we use for our implant planning. So we can see that section tab, that arch tab, implant tab, and that gallery tab directly through our web browser. So section is exactly the same. We can manipulate this, we can triangulate, we can move our 3D image. We can also change our preset for that. So if we want to see that tooth structure, we can do so. Arch tab is the same. We can manipulate this arch spline. We can create a new one, scroll through our pano image, as well as our sagittals. Implant, on the other hand, is more of a viewing platform at this time. So we can go in and you can send this to a colleague and they can view what you have done, but they would not be able to manipulate this. And then they would also see any of the images that you've collected during your workup in our gallery tab. So at this point, that covers Invivo 6 Plus, that covers Workspace and the interface between the two. I am going to go back to my PowerPoint and talk about our surgical guide service. So with our surgical guide service, as mentioned, this is for our more guided approach to implant planning. The process would be that you would send us your DICOM information, you would send us your intraoral scan, and our surgical guide team would create that preliminary treatment plan for you. So everything we just did within the software, our team would do. They would map that nerve, they would create the initial implant placement, and they would create those virtual restorations for you to look at. Once that's created, we set up a time to sit down with you virtually and go over that plan that we've created. Make sure you like it. Make sure you approve of it. You can make any modifications during that treatment planning session. But once you say it's good, we send that to our fabrication team and they create that guide for you. They would send you the guide and that treatment plan, those reference sheets that I showed you, and you would have everything that you need to do your guided surgery. The materials that we use are the 3D printed material and the thermoform material. What you see on the right-hand side is our thermoform guide. A lot of our doctors really, really love this material. And the reason for that is because it seats really well, no matter what type of guide it is, whether it's tooth, bone supported, it seats really nicely on the patient. And it's also transparent. So once that guide is in place, you can still see all the anatomy around your guide while you're performing your surgery. And again, our guides come in many different types. We can create tooth-supported guides for you, mucosa-supported, bone-supported, as well as bone reduction guides. So this really encompasses a lot of our patient needs. Again, once you receive your guide, you would have all of the information that you need to do a successful guided surgery. You would know what type of instruments you would need to use, and all of this reduces your patient's time in the chair and eliminates any complications upfront. And with that, I have gone over everything that I would like to go over for this episode. I would like to thank you again for joining. If you have interest in any of our other tabs that we didn't cover today, please reach out to me personally. I would love to go over with them or with you. And with that, I'll pass it back to Mike.
Thank you, Amanda. Great
Yes, sir.
job. Seriously, great job going through a very general overview of our products and services. Really appreciated it. So yes, we had 2 questions come in, and we still have time. So if anyone wants to, pop in any more questions in the Q&A box at the bottom, please feel free to do that. And let's go through the first question. How large is your implant library?
Yeah, great question. So our implant library is quite large. Let's look at it together so that we can see that. I'll go back to our second case. So if I pull up my implant library, these are all the manufacturers that we provide STLs for. And then these are all the products that we provide. So as you can see, it's quite expansive. We also are actively adding implants to our library. If there is an implant that you don't see in our list, please send us that information and ask for it to be added. All we need is to be able to talk to the manufacturer and get an STL of that implant, and we can certainly add that for you.
Perfect. Okay, next question. I bought your software many years ago. How can I upgrade to this version?
Yeah, good question.
Great question.
So we have a support contract that I recommend everyone that uses Invivo to be on. It gives you upgrades as they come out. It also gives you live support if you have any issues with the software, any issues downloading your upgrade. All of that can be done with our support team. And I think that answers the question. Tell me if it did, Mike.
No, great answer. And we'll be sending out a follow-up email, to everyone early next week, which will include a link for the recording, just in case if anyone wasn't able to join today's session. We'll also include all the questions from today's session and the answers as well. And we'll also be reaching out specifically for anyone related to this question about renewing and what those next steps would be. So, okay. Another question. Is there similar training for the airway functions available in Vivo? If so, when is the next one?
Good question. I love the airway tab. It's one of my favorites. I think we might be covering airway in our ortho episode next Friday. I will speak with our other application specialists to ensure that's the case. And if not, please reach out to me and I can go over that and we can add it to a future episode.
Okay, great. Looks like the same person said same for the super imposition tab too.
Also a really great tab. I love that one as well. I think that one might be touched on briefly in ortho. So I will again check with Anna, but I'm pretty sure on that one. especially the superimposition options that we have in 3D analysis, which is one of our add-on features. So definitely sign up for that one. And then I have in mind that we're going to do a lot of these episodes, and we'll definitely do some more specialty features like those.
Great, great. Okay, next question. How much does the upgrade cost? So right now, our renewal cost is $950 for the 1-year maintenance contract. We will be including some incentives and promotions for everyone that is joining today's session, who will be eligible for these promotions and incentives. So we'll get into that more next week, and what those mean for everyone if they're interested in renewing and or buying a new license. But the list price for a renewal is $950 USD. Next question: is there a chance that Invivo will make an app so that we can design our own surgical guides so we can print out in office?
Yeah, so we get that question quite a bit. At this time, we do not allow for STL export within our software. And the reason for that is we take great pride in our surgical guide team. They do a wonderful job. It is on the table because we get that question every single time. It's not out of the question. We'd love to reach out to you when we do have that option.
Very good, very good. All right, that might be it for questions. Maybe we can give it another couple seconds, but yeah, I think that's it. And when we follow up with everyone next week, we're definitely going to include a survey where we want to hear from you guys and get the feedback from all of you on how you thought today went, as well as any ideas you have on what else you would like to see moving forward. We plan on doing one of these webinars most likely every month moving forward. We feel like it's a great just a great way to connect with everyone and just keep everyone updated on what's going on our end. So we'd love to hear from you and see what ideas you have and what else we can show you guys moving forward. And also as a reminder, next Friday we will be doing another one that will be ortho related, same as this one, general for the implant side of things, but next Friday will be general overview for what we can do in the ortho space. So we encourage all of you to join that and sign up for it. And yeah, thanks again for joining today's session. Oh, one more question that just came in. What is the price of the surgical guide and what is the turnover time?
Sure, good question. So our thermoform guides are $325 and our 3D printed guides are $275. And our turnaround time at this point, we get that treatment plan to you within 1 day. And we do ask that you allow us 7 days for fabrication and shipping.
Very good. Really good questions, everyone. Really good questions. Okay. I believe we are all set, unless there's any others.
If you have any other questions, our phone number is at the bottom of this slide, and info@Osteoid Inc. will come directly to us. So be sure to grab that.
Exactly. And like I said earlier, we will be following up with everyone by early next week at the latest with next steps and how we can continue to work together, as well as further educating you all on what we do here and the value that we bring for everyone on this call and everyone else we do business with. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. Hope you all have a great weekend and we will be in touch. And thanks again, Amanda. Great job.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye now.